All right, we are back. It's Wednesday night. A few people filter in here before we get it going. We are out in Atlanta, Georgia. My first time here. I've never been to Georgia before. I have to say, people are very nice. They have sweet tea. Good, they got all the things you need. If you're Southern, you can figure it out.
Not an espresso machine.
Well, aside from ranch at restaurants, they got everything that you need. Was on a podcast earlier today. You guys may have seen me on Wham Bam's podcast. Phil, shout out to him. Appreciate him having me to his home today. Fantastic podcast studio. And that should be another one. I don't know when it'll be released for you guys. Probably next Wednesday would be my guess after they do all the edits and stuff. So, he grilled me a little bit on some of the things we talked about last year, which was fine. I don't have any problem, owning shortcomings, or if, things don't play out in the time frame that I would like them to, or I think anybody else would like them to. Went through all of that. And then he also called out all the things that I did get right, which was much appreciated. So enjoyed that one. And again, encourage you guys to go check that out. We do have our event tomorrow here in Atlanta, Georgia. If you are in the mastermind, you know where it's at. We'll be in the evening tomorrow. So if you are local, if you haven't signed up for that, if you want to participate, we would love to have you there. All you got to do is go over to beyondbroke.com and use the code beyondbroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO like Mary Oscar gets you the first month for $2 there in the mastermind. Month to month, no contract, cancel anytime, but over 17,000 people stay there in the mastermind every single month because of the value that we provide there. So if that's something you're interested in, you want to hang out with other like-minded individuals, get financial education, business resources, access to private deals. We have all of that and more over there in the group. I've been part of a lot of masterminds in my life, and I try to make sure that one is the most valuable thing that's out there for way less than what I've paid to be part of other groups. I've paid to be part of groups that were $3,000, $5,000, $35,000, $100,000 a year. And I try to make sure that the group we charge $25 a month gets, as much or more value than you're going to get from those type of groups. So one of the things we talked about on the podcast was, if you're a young individual, there was a gentleman in the audience. He had a live audience today, which was pretty cool. That was 17 years old. He is a baseball player. He's working on getting his scholarship and, getting some of the NIL money. I wish him the best in doing that. But he's got a little bit of extra cash and he's looking to invest it. And he was asking, I've got a little bit of XRP, I've got some, other crypto. Where should I put it? And I said, look, the best place to put it is back into skills and resources that you have to be able to generate higher income. So if that's, lessons for baseball or, business or other things. Thank you, babe.
It's gotta be coffee. I'm sorry.
That's all right. We will take the cappuccino because I'm going to need it. Need some go juice. Anyway, he was there when we talked about investing yourself. And, like I said, many times I've paid to be in rooms that I didn't belong in, to be around people that were ahead of me. Seems to be working fine to me.
Okay.
Oh, it says lost connection. Let me see. I don't know if I can put it on the Wi-Fi here. Let me see if I can give it a go and it'll connect. It may not. Sorry, technical difficulties. At least I have my battery tonight. We got the battery going good. Let's see if I can restart the TikTok. I know. Let's see. Try it again here. All right. We got lots of super chats tonight. Again, appreciate you guys taking time out of your Wednesday to come hang out. Please like, subscribe, share. That does help the algorithm. Wham Bam said something interesting. I don't know what my percentage is, but he said something like, 85% of the people that watch the show don't subscribe to the channel. I don't know that we have that same statistic, but if you are watching this and you do get value and you haven't subscribed, please go ahead and do that. It does help everything get to more people and share it. if you find value, share it with somebody that you think would find value as well. All right, we'll go ahead and jump into the super chats. Well, you guys probably want an update on the macro, don't you? I'm sure that you do. That's what you come here for. So we did have Warsh today, hold rates here in the U.S., and I put out a tweet yesterday before that happened. I said it doesn't really matter what the U.S. does, whether they raise, whether they lower, whether they hold. All of it leads to the reverse carry trade. And I really mean that. Like, Japan is in a spot where their yen continues to depreciate against the dollar, and us holding rates strengthens our dollar, and they need to strengthen their currency against ours. If they do not, their yen will collapse. With all of the inflation across economies because of the oil and the conflict in the Middle East, they're really kind of backed into a corner here. So if they can't lower interest rates, because then their yen becomes even weaker, and it would cause hyperinflation in their economy. They can hold, but even if they hold, it only lets it go a little bit longer before their currency collapses. They need to do something now. They're already at the upper bound of where they've been over the past 30 plus years. And if they raise, the reverse carry trade unwinds. If we had lowered, the reverse carry trade unwinds because it becomes more profitable to hold their bonds versus our bonds, because our bonds would drop in value. We held, and so we didn't rock the boat one way or the other. And what's weird is this month is the first time that I'm aware of that we've had an FOMC before their meeting. Normally it's them, kind of setting expectations for the market, and then we kind of follow along behind that. So for us to have ours first is a little bit different than we've seen in recent history. And it'll be interesting to see what Japan does here at the end of the month. I do anticipate that they're going to have to raise rates. They are posturing at the moment that they are going to hold at 1%. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. We did have Treasury yields drop a little bit today for the U.S. And that could be, that would be an indication that people are buying U.S. bonds, anticipating a rate hike, which we didn't get. There was some speculation over there on poly market, like 25% chance that we would see, Warsh raise rates. They've postured that they're going to do that, but inevitably they're going to have to lower interest rates here. We need access to capital. Inflation's running hot. Jobs numbers are coming back in places that, their mandate is inflation and to hold job stability for the populace. And both of those things are running hot at the moment. So for them to hold, not really, but they can't lower. Like I said, if they lower, everything else burns, and they're aware of that. People would normally correlate lowering interest rates with stocks going crazy and people moving to risk on, people taking out, more debt, more leverage. We've seen problems with that, right? I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to the Korean stock market or not, but it is collapsing. There was a video that I watched earlier today of a young lady that had $3 million in her portfolio that she had leveraged in that stock market, and she was liquidated, all $3 million. And she was crying on camera. She was an influencer in Korea. It's like 3% of their total population has been liquidated in this move that they've seen in their stock market. That is wild. That is a ridiculous amount of people. Here in the U.S., if we had something similar, we have 370 million people here in the U.S. That'd be somewhere between 10 and 12 million people getting liquidated in their positions in the stock market. Unheard of. Something crazy. So we'll continue to watch that. I do expect their stock market to continue to drop. There's just a lot of dynamics at play that show that it's going to come back down and, touch previous all-time high. We've talked with you guys about, gold and silver both doing that. When silver was 110, I said, I think it's coming back to 50 before it goes higher. And now we find ourselves, around $60. We've been as low as $56 for silver. Gold has not moved as much as I thought it would. Gold continues to sit around $4,000 an ounce. I do expect a big move to the downside, pulling it back to somewhere between, 2,000 and 2,200, previous all-time high for gold. And I don't think it'll be a long-lived, situation on either one of those, whether silver's at 50 or gold's at, 2000. I think it'll be a V bottom out of there. Maybe they'll reset prices on both of those commodities. A lot of people have talked about that. We've also got Japan threatening to, nationalize their central bank. Russia has already done that. They've kind of set precedent for what that looks like, and then backing their currency with gold. Highly likely at this point that I think that they will nationalize their central bank, moving away from the central bank system that we've been in and the continued issuance of debt. They have to restructure everything though, and they got to back it with something. And maybe, just maybe, they'll use XRP over there in Japan. So all the dominoes are still stood up. Everything's still ready to go. We're waiting on Japan to do whatever they're going to do here this week. But I've said before, if Trump decides that we cannot any longer export oil to other countries because our reserves are too low, and he were to institute or mandate that we cannot export oil and we have to refill our reserves, Japan, UK, other countries all around the world are going to be in for a hurting on how fast oil is going to skyrocket and the cost of energy is going to go up in their economies. So I don't know if that's going to happen, but that's my speculation on what the Trump card actually is. All right, we'll go ahead and jump into the super chats. But before I do that, I want to give a shout out to Ryan. Ryan knows who he is. He did invite us to his restaurant tonight. What was the name of it, baby? Divan? Divan, out here in Atlanta, Georgia. If you are in the area, I would encourage you to go over there and check it out. He provided fantastic service. The food was fantastic, great atmosphere, very cool building that it's in. The building's been there since 1910. It's like a 4 or 5 story building, a lot of history in that building. Anyway, gave us a tour, fed us dinner, fantastic time. Highly encourage you guys to go check that out if you are in Atlanta. And again, ask for Ryan as your server. All right. We got John Powers. He says, God bless Jake. Large bag of Canary Capital's ETF for XRP and with Bitwise inside my IRA. Will I have to sell the ETFs to draw passive income? Retired. Thanks. So inside your IRA, you could do that. Depends on what type of IRA it is. If it's a Roth, it's going to be tax-free. And you can, pull dividends from that. If it sounds like you're retired, maybe you're past 59 and a half years old and would be able to draw from that on a regular basis without the additional penalties. As far as income off of Canary Capital's ETF, I can't say a whole lot about that. I will say that we had an event with them in Nashville, and they are working on something that would allow you to generate some income off of that ETF. I can't say what it is. I can't talk about it, but really cool. Some of the stuff that they're doing, which is, outside the norm on ETFs. There are a few dividend paying ETFs, but the way that they plan to do that was very creative. So hold tight. I don't know when or if they will be announcing anything to do with that, but yeah, it'd be cool to see them start to pay a dividend off of that. And maybe, just maybe, it'll be on the other side of the implementation of liquidity pools and borrow lend on the XRPL, which we do have an update on. The network did get upgraded just earlier this morning to 3.2.0, was fully adopted. And, we've had the 2-week holding period, so that is now live on the network. They updated some fees to do with the DEX and the AMMs and some of the other things on the network. And now I do think that we're going to see batch payments, relisted and voted on. And the two that are up there are borrow lend and liquidity pools. And I think that those will likely see some traction now that that's across the line. All right, we got Kegs. They say, real talk. Pepe or SHIB token? Which will moon? I don't know that either one of them are going to moon. My thesis on these meme coins is that there will be some way to stabilize them as not societal currencies, but like community currencies. So there's a lot of people that own Pepe. There's a lot of people that own Shiba Inu. There's people that own Doge. I think that Elon maybe is the one that pioneers this, and he could utilize the data off of X in order to back that and hold price stability for that meme coin and have it adopted as a payment mechanism. That's my thesis on how this potentially works out for these meme coins that do still have significant market cap. SHIB, I'd love to see it at 1/1000th of a penny. I think a lot of people would love to see it at that price. That's kind of my top end threshold for where I think SHIB may go. I would love to be wrong. I would love for it to get to a penny and there'd be a bunch of trillionaires out there. I just don't know that that's going to happen. Same thing with Pepe. I haven't done enough research on Pepe to tell you where I think they will hold price stability for that, but a similar, type situation. Doge, I think, could be around $1 if they did, like a $1 backing and had a certain amount of data that was generated off of X, and they could quantify or value that data and use that as the backing for that token to be able to hold it at a certain price point. That's where I think that's going. So which one will moon? I think the era of meme coins is over. After Trump launched his meme coin with, Melania token and Trump token, and we saw all that play out. And there's all this controversy around the ethics in the Clarity Act over that situation. You also had Haktuya, and her coin, and she was gone for a long time, and now she's kind of resurfaced and is doing like farming or something. I don't know. My thought is that they will try to peg those because they have distribution and so many people that do support them and hold them, so that they can use them as some type of currency in certain markets. All right. Why is my, I don't know. Okay, there we go.
Oh, you messing it up?
Yeah. There we go. Honest Aim, good to see you. He says, Mr. Legacy and the Tea Lady, safe travels. Loved your post today. The Vanderbilt Trap. The new DAG has it all for us and more coming. Thanks for all that you built for all of us. Much love, blessings to all. Thank you. I really appreciate all the kind words and the support, you guys. These guys are OGs. Him and his wife have been here since the very beginning, and they have been part of the mastermind. Good clients. We've met them in person many, many times. So thank you so much for the support and the kind words. And that's the goal, right? Like, we want to make sure that we provide everything end to end that you're going to need across the entire life cycle of investing in crypto, whether you're just a beginner all the way up to, managing hundreds of millions of dollars in your family office, and everything in between. So, we try to meet you where you are, provide financial education, business resources, help you structure things early, make sure that you have access to lending, different products to be able to generate returns on your crypto, have the advisors, have the tax people, have attorneys, so that you have a financial team when all this plays out. Because, if you're like myself, 20 and 21, I was on my own. And I had a little bit of background because of my finance degree or my time in college, learning finance, but a lot of that wasn't even applicable to crypto, and had to do a lot of self-learning in order to get it figured out. And, if I hadn't had the advisors that did help me, I don't think I would have been able to figure it out myself. So if you're not doing that, if you don't want to work with us, that's okay. I just encourage people to go find good people either in your local network or global, could be global, depending on what you plan to do with your assets, but at least domestically, wherever you live, they can help you with this on the other side of it and start to develop those relationships now and not later. All right. We've got, why is my computer doing weird stuff tonight? There we go. All right. Nice shirt. Thank you. I actually got this from XRP Cafe. So Vet and many others are over there at Rare Evo this week. Shout out to Ray Fuentes. Love you mucho. He's out there in Vegas at that event. It's a bit more crypto bro at that event. Charles Hoskinson helps host that. Rare Evo guys, they do big stuff at Consensus, and they've kind of set up their own event now that's similar to Consensus, but it's much more about gaming, and at least the one that I attended was much more about gaming and not so much utility of the tokens, more meme coins, more communities, more DAOs, more that side of things. Nothing wrong with any of that. The technology is great for it. But if you are out there in Vegas and you can make it to Rare Evo and you want to go by the XRP Cafe booth out there, highly recommend doing that. Say hi to Vet for me and the whole team over there. And I bet they have some shirts that they're passing out. Why does this keep happening?
What's wrong with the chat?
I want to try to move it with my fingers. It's not working. Chris, my man, he says, yield product with DAG. If I hold 50K, are we earning yield on all 50K, or is it a portion as a safety? Mastermind LLC, thanks for everything. Thank you, man. Appreciate you being part of the community and asking great questions. So we are launching a yield product. It's going to go live September 1st. It's going to be available to clients over there at DAG that have an LLC or a trust with us. So go check that out. If you want to onboard, if you've been holding off, waiting on a yield product, we've got it. It's probably going to be a portion of your XRP that our team would advise that you would put in it. I'm sure that we will have people put all of it in there. We want to democratize access to everybody. We're still working through who's going to qualify for that, because we are limited in capacity when we're first launching it. Like I told you guys, Monday, there's a crawl, walk, run type situation with all these institutions. We would love to just fly, right? Like we would love to jump to the end and just to be able to do it all. But we got to trial things, make sure they work. So this is the first cohort of people that would be going into that product on September 1st. And likely, the advisors over there would tell you, this is not, laddered treasuries or a structured yield product in that same capacity. I would actually call this more of like a structured income SMA or separately managed accounts type product. We're targeting a range of 3 to 5% for the people participating in that deal. The sub-advisor, the group that we're working with, has generated really good returns over the past 12 months, consistent with another custodian. So this is the first time it's being done at Anchorage. And it depends on your risk tolerance, your risk capacity, suitability, all those things. And I think each person is probably going to have differences on those. And so the advisor is going to be the best to give you kind of, how much you should start with if you are going to be participating. I can tell you in the past, when we originally set up the funds, many of the advisors were telling people no more than 40% in the fund and kind of hold another portion away. We will be launching more and more products. So I will say that our plan is to launch one product per month. These are 30-day rolling products. So if you invest in one, it's probably going to be more than 30 days before you can pull your stuff out. We are going to do monthly contributions, monthly redemptions, and monthly payouts. So there's all the accounting. There's a bunch of stuff that goes into this that you don't really get with DeFi. There's no reporting. There's no compliance around DeFi, right? We are beholden to all of that because we're an SEC registered RIA, which is great. Like, it's a much higher standard than what you're going to get, participating in a DeFi protocol. You're going to get a 1099 DA at the end of the year that's easy to hand to your CPA, that shows all your taxes and what's due. Simplifies a lot of things, but also creates some friction, right? So just be aware of that. So if you plan on diversifying across multiple products, you might hold a portion back. We plan to launch another 5 to 6 products through the end of the year, kind of one a month is the plan.
Hopefully.
So like I said, it's the plan. After we've done this with one, highly confident that we're going to be able to roll it out very quickly for other ones. So this process and system is repeatable. That's why we've been harping on SMAs in order to get this structure in place. Funds, we can spin up a fund in another 6 weeks if we want to, but then we got to pool assets. You have to be accredited in order to participate. There's a bunch of qualifications around it, and there's a lot of frictions. The lockup period's longer. There's just a bunch of other things that I don't necessarily love. We got to market with that so that we have some options and provided some value for the people that wanted to work with us in order to be able to cover fees and, get some income for them. But this is going to be much lower friction on multiple points. So again, up to you. I would have a discussion with the advisor over there at DAG on the wealth side, and they can help you work through all of that. And they're going to be aware that we're going to be rolling out multiple products. And so depending on your, risk tolerance, time horizon, liquidity needs, all those things, they'll work with you to figure out, how much is appropriate for you to allocate. Great question, by the way. T-Bone. We got T-Boone with us tomorrow. If you guys know Tyler Boone, he's going to be out here. He lives in Georgia. He creates all the metal products for, a lot of communities in crypto, but mainly the XRP Army. He's going to be there. We've got some magnets that he's made for the team. Well, not the team, but the community at Beyond Broke. Those fridge magnets.
I thought it was going to be a surprise.
Well, I'm trying to hide people. I'm trying to hide people up. It's going to be cool. So anyway, he's going to be there. He's going to talk about some of the stuff that he's got going on, but your name reminded me of that. So I figured I'd throw it out there. And we appreciate him. We're excited to have him as a sponsor of the event tomorrow. He says, first, thank you for everything that you do for us. Can't thank you enough. 4+ years holding an XRP Carbon 1 member and holding my XRP with DAG. Awesome. Glad to be working with you. What's the deal with all the price glitches we see? I don't see other cryptos with this. You got me, man. I see the same deal. We've seen $90 XRP on Kraken. We've seen Upbit, similar. There was somebody the other day saying that they saw a $2,000 XRP on some other exchange. Over the past, we've seen $10,000 XRP, $5,000 XRP, $1,000 XRP on different exchanges. I'm sure that there's other glitches, right, on other exchanges for other tokens. I think that the breadth of the XRP community is large enough that people are paying attention to this and looking at the charts when it's happening on a regular basis. And so maybe we catch more of them than other people do. And we are also excited about it. And we believe in these high prices. So maybe we post them more. But I'm with you. I haven't ever seen, but I also my feed is curated to XRP also. And I try not to live in an echo chamber. I try to look at different perspectives and have different conversations. I was at a dinner Tuesday night in Miami with family offices and other people in the industry that are around crypto and AI. And you get a lot of different feedback, right? Like I'm the only person in the room that thinks what I think. So it's really interesting to have those conversations and get different perspective. It doesn't change my thesis. But all that being said, I'm sure that the Link community probably has glitches. Cardano has probably had glitches, and many others that are out there that do have a broader community that are watching this stuff on a regular basis. We don't see it because it's not in our feed. All right. Peter, my man, he says, thank you for the super chat. He says, if we hit $10 XRP, how do you feel about the Hulk mustache before you need to clean up your act and be more responsible? A little tinfoil hat.
Ooh,
Hey,
I'm into that.
oh, my wife says she would dig the handlebar mustache. So maybe I will. For most of our relationship, I was clean shaven. I could not even grow a beard until I was 30, and I actually started growing my beard after my dad passed away, and I've shaved it one time since then. And when I did, she did not like it after that, which, like I said, I was clean shaven the majority of our relationship. So, I keep it for the wife. I do like it. It's a lot fuller than it used to be. It used to be really patchy. And my dad told me that. He was like, I couldn't grow a beard until I was in my 30s. So I don't know if that's the case for you guys. I have buddies that had facial hair when they were 19 years old and they looked 25. But yeah, maybe we'll change it up a little bit. I don't know if you guys watch Alex Hormozy or not, but he had the handlebar mustache for a little while. And now he's gone, back to the full beard. He had just a mustache for a while also. So maybe, we'll go with the the 70s or 80s stash for you guys. We saw a guy at the pool. Was it yesterday?
I don't know.
Have you ever seen those, like the glasses with the nose and the mustache? That's what this guy looked like he had on. Like his mustache was an impressive mustache. It was not a fake mustache. Anyway, yeah, we'll change it up, before we clean up our act, like you said. I think that's coming sooner than later, though. Silent Seaman, he says, Sir Legend, how are you, sir? Beyond Broke Mastermind, Carbon One LLC, growth fund member, and excited for the future for those of us that struggle with Discord and will miss your tinfoil hat info. After price appreciation, there will be an easier version of the mastermind. So I don't know if Max wants me to say this or not, but we are working on it. I will say with Claude, the way that it is, I've said this on almost every live here recently, but if you are not vibe coding, figure it out. Like this is wild to be able to develop your own app and just tell it what you want it to be and it built the code for you. I'm not saying it's the end all be all or the developer's out of a job. I think that it increases developers' ability to get things done 5 or 10-fold from what they could do before, because now they just review code instead of having to write the whole thing. So that still needs to be part of the process. You still need QC, back-end data management, security, all of the other stuff that goes along with it. But in order to be SOC compliant, he's been working on that. Max is our AI guru. Max Avery is at our company. He's worked with every single person across the company to help, set up skills inside their Claude and do a bunch of things in order for them to be able to use this and really see the benefit of it. And he's been working on a whole new website for the Beyond Broke Mastermind. They'll have a bunch of bells and whistles when we're able to launch it. So I think he's still running that through QC, but I'm hopeful in the near future we will have a lot of other things that's available just directly on the website, much more like a social media website than having to deal with Discord if you do find that frustrating. DFW Mike, my man. He says, evening, boss. Hope you and the tea later are having fun, relaxing, and enjoying some quality family time. Thank you for everything. Sophia and I are looking forward to the white glove, pending price appreciation. Stay safe. Max says he's working on it legit right now. He's working on the new mastermind website right now. The white glove side. So we do have the private client side of our business. If you've got 20 million or more, we help you structure your family office. We are a multifamily office. So we'll help you set up your board, your financial committee. We help you do your family constitution with core values, principles, and beliefs. So that's structured. You put together a mission statement, all those things. And then that helps, define how things are going to go forward for your family using all the trust and other structures that you create alongside that. Most people have an LLC. They'll structure, an asset protection trust in Wyoming. And then, the world's your oyster after that, depending on what you set up with your family constitution. If you have philanthropic interest or, you want to go a bunch of different ways, you can. And you define your investment thesis. We go over a lot of this stuff in Carbon 3. We've got a whole series that we put together for that group that we've been over all these things. We help walk them through all of this. We have an AI model that, creates all this stuff for you based on the inputs that you have. And we do have concierge that you meet with that'll help you handle your accounting, your bill pay. They can book trips and stuff for you. We have a lot of different partnerships with private jet and aviation. We have other partnerships with yachts, exclusive destinations, all the fun stuff for the people that work with us in that capacity. So yes, I also look forward to working with you guys post PA on that side of the business. Papa Lou, he says, hey, Jake, mastermind member here. Awesome, dude. Glad to see you. What single institutional milestone would convince you that XRP has entered true production adoption rather than remaining in pilot and partnership mode? Seeing it settle the back into the stock market. On the podcast today, they asked me about the DTCC and implementing distributed ledger technology for reconciliation and settlement. And when the time frame for that would be, we've got the pilot up and going. They've tokenized QQQ and SPY. They are reconciling those, still T+1. So I think when we move from T+1 to T+0 or real-time settlement, that will be the milestone that unlocks everything else. So when you hear, and I don't know that you're going to hear this, I think they're just going to do it because they already have the option. As of May 28th in 2024, they moved to T+1 on the back end of the stock market with the option to settle real-time or T+0 via a digital asset. So they already have the option, and all they have to do is decide to start using it. But there's got to be enough liquidity in XRP in order to be able to facilitate that. So we need the supply shock, we need the reverse carry trade, we need the demand, we need Evernorth, we need BlackRock. There's still things that have to happen in the physical world in order to drive the price to that level. Once it's there, they can then start using it in that capacity. And they already have everything ready to go. And we're also waiting, on stable coins and the guidance from the OCC, the Fed, the Treasury, and the FDIC. I think that they will come out with, that guidance here in short order. And that's kind of the last puzzle piece I think we need in place before the reverse carry trade unwinds. Or Japan pokes the bear this week and raises interest rates and says, you better, make it happen. And maybe they already have it ready to go and they're ready to roll that out. And we're going to see, full scale adoption of stable coins in the very near future to be able to soak up those treasuries as they flow back here from foreign debt holders. All right. Bacorwin. Bacorwin? He says, hola. What's up, my man? Mastermind Carbon One. Appreciate you being part of the community. He says, after price appreciation, we'll be able to move to Carbon 2 or Carbon 3 at the current cost. Yes. Yeah. So anybody that's in the mastermind, your costs remain the same. So it's $25 for social, $100 for Carbon 1, $250 for Carbon 2. And then Carbon 3 is, you do have to be in these tiers for certain amounts of time in order to be able to unlock or participate in the next tier. We're setting up some of those parameters now for people, just because, everybody's in different places and people are going to benefit being in different groups for different reasons based on where they're at in their journey. The people that are in Carbon 3, if we're talking about setting up your family office and you haven't set up your LLC yet, I don't want to say that it is wasted information or wasted money, but it's not going to be totally applicable to you. I've talked about this many times. If you're talking to a billionaire and they're telling you what they're doing with their money and you only have $10,000 or $5,000 or $100, it's not very helpful, is it? Because their context and what they're doing isn't applicable to your situation. But if you have somebody that, is 3 or 4 steps ahead of you, that was just where you were 6, 10, 12 months ago, then that's a lot easier conversation. They're going to be able to give you actionable steps and tell you what potholes you need to skip over to get to where they're at faster. And that's a lot of what the mastermind's about, right? Like we have a lot of people in there that are just starting their journey, and we have people in there that have been here for 5, 6, 7 years that have all their stuff set up and established and they're ready to go, and everybody in between. So, yes, all the costs will remain the same for people that are already in the mastermind before price appreciation. Post price appreciation, all the costs will go up substantially and it will be invite only. So, if you think this is something that you want to participate in, you'd like to get in there before price appreciation happens, again, all you got to do is go over there to beyondbroke.com, use the code beyondbroke, all capitalized, number 1, and then MO, like Mary Oscar, each of the first month for $2 there in the group, whether you're in social or Carbon 1, and you can try it out month to month, no contract, cancel anytime. It's not like we would pin you down and hold you in the mastermind or anything. And I will say this too, at some point, it might not make sense. You may have got everything that you're going to get from the mastermind. There was a gentleman on Twitter today that said, he left and he loved the group. He, got a lot of information from it, but he got to the point where he felt sufficient on his own. And so he stepped away. Nothing wrong with that. To be honest with you, we've set the business up that way. My goal with this is that, we give you the tools, the solutions, the education, for everybody to become their own single family office at some point in the future. Now, we would love to be the conduit and partner for you to be able to put some of those assets to work, but I don't think we need to be the end all be all. We don't do a ton with real estate. We don't do a ton with, we do some with private equity. We have some traditional assets and expertise on that side. But I would say, we're not like complete experts on any one of those things. We're experts on crypto. And so for that portion of your portfolio, we'd love to continue working with you in that capacity. We're building software so that you can do all of this. But you're going to have other partners, and you're going to bring in experts, onto your board and reviewing deals that you might want to do depending on your investment thesis that might be outside the scope of what we're good at. And we can make referrals, and we might have trusted partners. But at the end of the day, I've always worked in a way where, like, even when I did the physique coaching, I didn't want to be people's coach for forever. I'm not here to gatekeep information. I want people to learn themselves, teach people how to fish, and then go let them catch fish. Like I've said before, the more value you put out, the more comes back to you. It doesn't have to be exactly from the person that you're talking to. The universe is going to take care of me and our team, right? So we just want to help as many people as we can and make sure that people are in a good position to take the most advantage of this and not squander it. Next question, he says, Japan seems to be able to drop the yen whenever they please. Not really. I mean, they can buy their own bonds, or they can have yield curve control, which is what they're doing, or they can sell U.S. Treasuries in order to kind of strengthen their currency a little bit. But I mean, they haven't been able to push it back down below 163 in a long time here. It will continue to depreciate against the dollar now that we've held, and we continue to see oil be a problem in their economy. And I do expect that the yen will continue to collapse, closer to 164, 165. And it's like, I don't know what their threshold is or how much they're willing to bear before they move the needle here, but I don't think it's much further than where we're at. Goldman, they've projected 165 yen per USD. And there's been a few other people that have said 164, 165. I told you guys 161, 162 was kind of the limit because it had been in the past based on the chart. And now we're at 163, almost 164. So we're past that point. Like they need to act. They need to do something. And the last option that they have, really the only option that they have at this point, is to raise interest rates. Redeem Adventures. I'm sure I messed that up. He says, Jake, the year is halfway over. Are you still 100% 750 by the end of the year? Will it stay around there for the rest of 2027? What happens if the BOJ does in fact hold their rates? Would that change your end of year thoughts? No, it's not going to matter. Like I said the other day, it doesn't matter what the US does. It doesn't matter what they do at this point. All roads lead to the reverse carry trade happening. And they need to pull this leverage out of the system. They need to restructure the debt. All these things have to happen in order for an agentic economy to happen, and all the other progressive technologies that we're seeing on a daily basis come into vogue and how they're going to be used. And then in order to be able to grow GDP globally, they have to be able to do all this. So we have to move on chain. There are no options left. They have to be able to restructure the debt. The only thing that they can do that with really is digital assets. You've heard the Bank of Japan talking about that. And so, yeah, I mean, Monica Long, I've repeated this over and over again, but she said 2026 is the year for institutional adoption at scale for XRP and the XRPL. So for that to happen, you need a 4-digit XRP. There's not another way that it can facilitate the liquidity required for real scale institutional adoption.
Did you do the disclaimer?
Oh, yeah. My wife reminded me on the disclaimer. So appreciate you on that. As always, this is not financial advice. Go watch other people, learn from other people, make your own decisions. I'm not the end all be all. Take it all with a grain of salt. I have strong biases and I talk about my positions on here, but it's not financial advice. It's for entertainment and educational purposes only. You should always speak with a financial advisor before making any investment decisions. We have them at DAG Wealth if you want to go talk to one that understands crypto. And anything I say is also my opinion. It's not the opinion of Digital Ascension Group or any of its subsidiaries. So there you have it. I try to do that at the beginning, but we're in the middle this time. So no, I doesn't change my opinion at all. We already did that one. Hulk mustache, we did that one. We did that one. It always kicks me up in the chat or down in the chat, depending on where I'm at. Anubis, XRP, they say legend. What's up, dude? Do amendments XLS-65, single asset vaults, and XLS-66, institutional lending protocol, need to be passed before the reverse carry trade? XRPL cannot natively support borrowing, interest spreads, or structured carried positions. It does not. It does not need to be passed before the reverse carry trade. We already have the DEX with the implementation of 3.2.0. It fixes a lot of the fees and the other issues that were there with the AMMs. The AMMs will help facilitate currency exchange and many of the other things that are out there, as long as they're issued assets on the XRPL. So, we've seen RLUSD, we've seen Brazil issue their currency on the XRPL. I think that Ripple will probably issue the euro and the pound. The yen, might come from SBI or the Bank of Japan, depending on, if they do actually roll in their central bank and, do what they've said they're going to do and utilize digital assets to be able to restructure the debt. So all that, as long as there's payment channels, and we need an implicit or explicit subnet. That is the missing link. Ripple does have a patent for that. Bob Way actually filed for the patent for that when he was working there a long time ago. So again, a lot of this stuff's been in the works for a long time. I think Ripple has a repository of amendments that will continue to compound on the DeFi aspect of the XRPL. If you want to go research that, you can see that there's amendments all the way out to like 100 something. And you can see what some of those are. Multi-purpose token is a huge piece of tokenization of stocks on the XRPL. It acts as kind of like an NFT, but a fungible NFT. So you can have different voting rights and different things associated with that token, depending on what type of share class you own. So private equity in particular, and people issuing their original stock on chain, I think will end up on the XRPL over the long term. Now that's not to say that Canton and, Stellar and Ondo and Securitize won't have their place. They've already seen major partnerships with the exchanges for stocks that exist today. But stocks that are issued native on chain, I think probably end up on the XRPL with the multi-purpose token. If there is another network that has a multi-purpose token, I'm not aware of it. That's the first time I've ever heard of that acronym or that term, when we proposed that amendment and it was passed. So I could be wrong about that. Again, I kind of have blinders on a little bit because this is what I do on a daily basis. I, watch mainly the XRPL and the updates there. I'm not so involved with, some of the other networks that are out there. But as far as I'm aware, it's the only network that has that particular function. But I am excited about 65 and 66. It's something that we're looking at. Actually, I have a meeting tomorrow about some of that. And definitely something that we would like to be able to provide to our clients inside institutional custody, so that you have all the assurances around that. The assets are insured, they're segregated, bankruptcy remote. They're going to be segregated using these single asset vaults, but they're going to be pooled, right? So the other one that's not been voted on yet is XLS-64, which is pseudo accounts. So pseudo accounts would be like a proxy position for your XRP, or a direct representation. So you could lock the XRP in one wallet and reflect that value somewhere else, so that, if there was a problem with the institution or the pool or wherever that was being reflected to, the assets themselves are still safe and locked in your account. So excited to see that one whenever they propose it. Batch payments, I think, will come back around now as well. And as long as they have that, sat there in the background that Bob Way patented a long time ago. If you want to go look it up, it's Robert Way, and it's a Ripple patent for an implicit or explicit subnet if you want to give it a Google. Jaybird, thank you for the super chat. They say, sup, Jake? Long-time listener, first-time caller. Love it. Any chance the U.S. is pressuring Japan to not raise rates until after midterms. Why hasn't it happened? That's a great question. I think that stablecoin guidance needed to be ready, and the OCC and everybody's kind of a little bit behind on that, but now we're past the statutory deadline for that, so they should have that ready to go. Again, like I've said, that's kind of the missing puzzle piece in my mind for banks actually being able to adopt this and soak up the treasuries when the reverse carry trade unwinds. And they've been very methodical about how they've done all of this. We are coming up on the 2-year anniversary since the reverse carry trade started to unwind in August of 2024. I think it was August 4th or 5th when that started to happen. So we're a week away from the 2-year anniversary on that event. Yeah, that's the main piece. We need to be able to drive demand domestically for treasuries. And until we have that capability, I think they're going to continue to kick the can on this whole thing playing out. And that's why the U.S. would be pressuring them, to your point, to not do it yet, because they know that if it's done prior to that, it collapses our bond market and literally collapses the entire global market. Like we go back to Mad Max type situation. So we don't want that. At least I don't. And, a lot of people say, well, what if this doesn't happen? Or what if that doesn't happen? There's no other choice. Like, unless you guys want a global depression where nobody has jobs and GDP tanks, we're not able to fund any of these government programs, nobody gets Social Security, your stock portfolio is in the gutter, you can't retire, like nothing good happens if this doesn't happen. So when people come at me with that question, I'm like, are you looking for worst case scenario, or do you want like the one option that we have to actually be able to get through this? And the one option we have is to move all of this on chain, push liquidity into these digital assets with finite amounts, and then be able to back the new financial system with these alongside other commodities. We're going to move to a commodity-based financial system, which hooray should solve a ton of the problems that people experienced in society. You probably won't have to have 2 incomes in order to be able to support a household like it was in the 40s and 50s here in the US. Like the white picket fence, you've got help, you've got a nanny, you've got all these things on one income or one salary. Like that would be great. I think that's where we're headed after this transition. And that would also coincide with the fourth turning. I've mentioned that book before, but if you haven't read that, it talks about socioeconomic cycles and how those coincide with currency changes. And there will be some event that galvanizes society. It normally comes through a war or a conflict. We're in a war and a conflict in the Middle East. We're seeing the death of the petrodollar, and we're seeing the migration to this new system. And the reverse carry trade is just one thing on that list in order to be able to pull leverage out of the system to make that migration. And it is underway. All right. Papa to Max. Good to see you, sir. He says, Jake, it's my birthday. Happy birthday, dude. I don't know how old you are, but happy birthday. Hopefully.
And Harry Potter's birthday.
Harry Potter's birthday is also on Friday this week. HP. So excited. Again, appreciate you sharing that with me. He says he's in the mastermind. He's wondering about Hash. Is there any wallet or institution that allows us to store and protect a big bag of it? I think Mike Cagney might be working on that.
And I think Arculus may take it.
My wife says Arculus
I think
may take it also. She's heard through the grapevine or some of the comments out there that may be an option on there. So it's Provenance Blockchain's token. If you want to go look it up, see the market action, follow it on CoinMarketCap. It's not going to come up under Hash. That's a different token. You'd have to type in Provenance Blockchain token, and it'll come up on there. But the ticker for it is Hash. You can buy it on Figure Markets or what's the other one? Osmosis. Thank you.
I work here.
My wife does work here. She listens to this and stuff enough that she's got it down even better than I do sometimes. But those are the 2 places you can purchase it. Again, not advocating that you go do that. Do your own research, understand what the blockchain's for. But it is back under a penny at this point. I bought it at 2 cents. So, it's not like I've made money on it or I'm shilling it or any of that. I just think it's interesting because they're tokenizing insurance on it. And, Mike Cagney's rolling up mortgage-backed securities on chain and now auto loans to the tune of over $1 billion a month.
Yeah, it's Arculus, that was right.
So,
Says Google.
okay, well, Arculus apparently can hold it. So there you go. If you had a big bag of it and you want to move it to a cold wallet, that would be one of the options that are out there, if not the only option for a cold wallet. Beefy 2HP. They say, hi, Jake, 37, business owner in Australia with 8 employees. How would you help them post price appreciation? Have gifted them 10,000 XRP each in cold storage. Thank you. So I actually have another gentleman that's in Carbon 3. He's a good friend. He attended many of our dinners. I won't say his name on here, but he knows who he is. I appreciate him very much. He's got a similar situation. So I think he has 10 employees for his business. They do, blue collar labor type stuff. And he wants to make sure that they're taken care of. So what he's done is something similar to you. He's kind of gifted them a small portion. He has put some qualifications around like when they can get access to it, what they can do with it, how that's structured. And I don't remember what I told him. I think I told him to put it in another company and then gift them the equity in that company. And then if you wanted to do an ESOP or something when you wanted to retire. So I don't know what you have there in Australia, but here in the US, if you want to sell your company to your employees, you can do an ESOP. And it's an employee stock option plan, basically. So if you did want to sell your business out to them, they could, use some of the XRP or borrow against it in order to be able to fund that transaction, to be able to buy the business from you, from that other LLC. And the reason you'd want to do it in the other LLC is if you're the majority shareholder of that LLC and you're gifting them equity in that would equate to certain amounts of liquidity for them post PA, you could then kind of put some stipulations on how they get access to it, how the treasury is going to be managed, and a bunch of other things. If you just gift them 10,000 XRP and they've never had money before, they haven't done the work to have the financial education, or they just don't have the expertise to be able to utilize it correctly, I don't want to say it could do more harm than good, but we've talked about lottery winners on this live podcast before. A lot of people end up broke. A lot of people end up buying liabilities and stacking things up and living above their means, and they don't know what to do with the money, and they don't understand taxes, and they end up filing bankruptcy in 3 to 5 years. You want this to be a good thing for them, right? But if they don't have the discipline themselves, or they just don't have the skill set, they don't have the understanding to be able to do it the right way, that would be a way that you might structure it in order to be able to help them still get the benefit from it, but also provide some guidance and make sure that it's not squandered or that it doesn't go the wrong way. And again, it also may be a way for you to be able to exit and allow you to sell the business to them. And there may be other people out there in that situation, right? Triple Lindy Trader, she says, God bless. Your opinion on Cross River Bank. Cross River has been a Ripple partner since 2014. X Money went live today with their ability to transfer payments, issue debit cards, and do all the fun stuff for your account over there on X. I don't think they're at scale yet. They're still rolling it out to specific users, but they've gone through the beta period, and now they're transitioning to the full scale execution across the platform. Maybe there's a there. Maybe X marks the spot. Who knows? But yeah, I think Cross River Bank is integral for a lot of reasons. They also are the bank that Uphold uses on their back end. A bunch of different fintech platforms and exchanges utilize Cross River. So for them to be a Ripple partner and, advocate for XRP and all the other things that they do, I think there's probably a there. Jupiter, they say, hey, Jake, join the mastermind. Glad to be here. Awesome, dude. Appreciate you being part of the community. They said, if I have Metallicus tokens that appreciate into millions, one particular stacked for 4 years, could I join DAG, have XRP, and also ISO assets as well? What's the minimum? Thank you. So I don't think, I know that we don't custody Metallicus. at Anchorage. I don't have a way to be able to provide financial guidance on that token. Just candidly, it's not been something that we've focused on or advocated for. We haven't really had enough demand for that from our client base. And again, I've talked about this before. Anchorage is really about the money and liquidity. And like, if we have $100 million of something, we can tell them, we have a client base that has this much money. Can we get this, on your platform? And then they'll have a conversation. But until we're at that point, I don't want to say it's peanuts for them, but it kind of is, because they're dealing with BlackRock and all the other large institutions that they are. So 100 million is kind of like their minimum threshold. But yeah, would love to work with you in whatever capacity that we can. At the current time, and I think into the future, our minimum is going to be $500,000 in total portfolio value in order to be able to get access to institutional custody on all the products and stuff that we have, or 50,000 XRP. The minimum on the XRP likely will come down, to whatever the dollar threshold is post price appreciation. So let's say, you have 5,000 XRP and it goes to $100 a piece. You would then have $500,000 and you would qualify, right? So, other ISO assets and other things, as long as you have at least $500,000 in your total portfolio value or 50,000 XRP, we would love to work with you today. And on the Metallica side, if there was enough demand for it, happy to have the conversation. And I'll leave it there. Mr. Luther says, hey, Jank, thanks for everything. Appreciate you, dude. Thank you for the super chat. I say, can you explain how and why money flows to XRP when the reverse carry trade and where the money comes from? So yes, I can. A couple different ways. So there's ETFs. I believe that there's going to be a large rotation based on announcements from Japan and other counterparties that XRP is going to be the thing. So you're going to see a huge rotation of liquidity out of equities and other things and other ETFs into the XRP ETFs, which will drive volume and demand across the exchanges, OTC desk, and dark pools. And because of that demand, they'll dry up the OTC desk, they'll dry up the dark pools, and that volume will make its way to exchanges. And with very little amounts left on the exchanges, the price will go substantially higher. You also would have FOMO from retail and other institutions if XRP was given a tier 1 designation by the BIS, or we had announcements that Japan was going to back their financial system with it. There's many things that I think will come out that will have that effect, where there's a lot of demand all at one time that would then cause a supply shock effectively on the open market that would then push the price much higher. BlackRock ETF and all those things. So, and the real piece is, so that's how I think it'll happen. Why would those things happen? Like, why are they a second order effect? If we do have significant downturn in the stock market and we need real-time settlement in order to be able to start driving the economy, Warsh has talked about this too. If that takes place, he has to lower interest rates, right? If we lower interest rates and we don't have a way to be able to reduce M2 money supply, we have huge inflation. We go into hyperinflation. We don't want that. We also don't want a deflationary collapse. So the only other lever that they only have 2 levers right now. They need a third lever. That third lever is the velocity of money. They need money to be moving faster between people's hands, because there's 2 things that cause, there's a formula for inflation. It's the velocity of money, or how fast money's changing hands across an economy, and how much money is out there in the economy, or M2 money supply. So for him to be able to reduce M2 money supply, the velocity of money is at the lowest it's ever been. People are hoarding cash. They're stuffing it wherever they can because they're concerned about inflation, and they're not holding it. And if they are holding it, they're saving it. They're not spending it, right? And they record this. They look at the velocity of money. You can go look it up on Google. It's the lowest point that it's ever been in recorded history, right? Like, since they've been recording it. So for them to spur that and get it going the other direction so that they can reduce M2 money supply so that we don't have hyperinflation, we have to have real-time settlement. And the only way to get that is to move things on chain. The only way to be able to actually do that and facilitate it is if there is enough liquidity in these ecosystems to settle those payments. And therefore, the institutions are going to be piling in to XRP in order to be able to enable that. And that's why I say like price has to happen first, and then they can start using it. We are about an hour in, so I'm going to go all the way to the bottom of the chat here, and I'm going to work my way back up. So if you haven't posted a super chat, just cut them off. This person says they sent an email. No more super chats. I'm probably not going to get to them. If I missed your super chat for whatever reason, don't hesitate to email it to us. Just info@dag.com, and then we'll get it over to me, and I will read it on the Monday live next week. People always remind me in the chat, if you wouldn't mind, please like, subscribe, share, hype it. If you're over here on YouTube or on Facebook, YouTube, X, and over here on TikTok, it does help the channel, helps the algorithm, helps get this out to more people, and it is much appreciated. All right, Ben Rawson, not Ben Dawson, Ben Rawson. He says, I grew up with a kid named Ben Dawson, so that's why I said that. He says, Jake, if this was the year 1944, is Friday D-Day? Is the Bank of Japan a kamikaze about to kamikaze the stock market, or what? Oh, I like the analogy. So again, you're kind of, if you haven't read The Fourth Turning, highly encouraged to go read it. That is the last fourth turning that we had, was 1944 with the World War that we had at the time, World War II, and D-Day. All the stuff that happened after that, it kind of galvanized society, and we were able to move forward under a new world order. At Bretton Woods and all the other things that they did back then. We have had Bretton Woods 3.0 already in place, so I think there's been a lot of things that have already been decided by the Fed and the IMF and the BIS and all the other people that are out there. If you want to go look at Smoke over there on Twitter, highly encourage you to do that. He puts out a lot of great documentation about different literature that's already been released from those entities, and finds XRP in them, finds distributed ledger technology, level playing field, all the things that we know kind of allude to the fact that XRP is going to be used. But anyway, back to the question at hand. If they raise, yes. If they do end up raising interest rates here, like I think that they're going to have to, it is going to have significant implications for markets globally. And we're going to have to act very quickly in order to be able to stabilize things across the board and get them back into a good spot before midterms, if that is, the intention. Roscoe, they say, many XRP content creators are predicting 80 to 90 cent XRP soon. Do you agree? High probability. Yeah, I don't have any buy orders or anything there. Again, not financial advice, but I would say with volatility in markets, the reverse carry trade potentially unwinding, liquidity crisis in crypto because of Tether and some other things that are out there, highly likely that we will see a big wick to the downside in the not too distant future when all this unfolds, before we see the big move to the upside. Are you going to be able to execute limit orders or trades or buy or sell at those prices? I don't know. That's my concern with waiting for that. We talked about this on the Wham Bam podcast today. A lot of people that watch this podcast bought XRP. Again, not financial advice. I know what I'm talking about a lot of the time, and I sound convincing to a lot of people, and that's why I encourage people to go listen to other people, just like you're doing, which is great. But all I'd say, if you bought XRP at 80 cents, 90 cents, $1.50, $2, and it goes to where I think it's going to go a couple $1,000 or $10,000 or $100,000 over the long term, are you really mad that you bought it at $1.05 or $1.06 versus 80 or 90 cents? You might be able to pick up another 10% more. Like, does that really make a big difference in the scheme of things over the long term? Or would you rather, just dollar cost average and not have to worry a whole lot because you have exposure? Now, if you're trying to add additional exposure and you already have a good bag and you're trying to, clip a little bit more, I get that. There's nothing wrong with it. Again, can't give you financial advice, can't tell you what to do. But for me, I'll share a story with you guys. So I try to be pretty even kill, pretty stoic. I do that for my business, for my marriage, for you guys on here. I do get excited and I do get down, but I try to, be pretty resilient and get back to baseline pretty quickly. And what I tell myself in that scenario is, doesn't matter 5 years from now, right? So if I didn't lose a limb and nobody's dying, and even then, like, there's been things in my life that have happened that have been horrible, and I'm still here, still kicking. Things are good. I'm blessed, right? Super grateful for my life. If you bought it at $1.05 or 80 cents, does it matter 5 years from now? If you think it's going to the prices that we all think it's going to, probably not. So I see people get spun up. Now, if you only think it's going to $10 and you're going to sell it all when it gets there, cool. Like, I get that. Then that makes a big difference. It's 10%, right? But if you are looking to hold this over the long term and utilize the asset to be able to borrow against it, tax-free, put it to work, earn income for yourself, and generate, generational wealth for your family, I don't see why so many people get spun up on short-term market action, even within a year or 6 months or 2 years. Like, if you have the conviction in it and you do believe it's going to those high prices, you just continue to dollar cost average. And we're actually rolling out a product. So this is a good time to mention this. Lewis mentioned this on a podcast or webinar, that we did 2 weeks ago. He's our CIO. He came from Grayscale. He's worked at BlackRock and Goldman also. We put together a strategy with Arch Public to be able to average into the market with your XRP. So if you are a DAG client and you have fresh cash and you want to get the best buys, we have an algorithm that averages you into the market at the best points over the 30-day period that you are putting that capital to work. So you don't even have to think about it. You just park the cash over there, put it in that strategy, and it's going to get you, pretty close to the bottom over the average over the month, doing it that way. So we've thought about this. We literally have a product that we've built for you on it, so that you don't have to be staying up till 2 or 3 a.m. staring at your screen or setting limit orders that don't execute. This algorithm runs and it does it for you. And again, first cohort of that goes live August 1st. You're here in just a few days. So if you want to participate in that strategy, I would highly, highly encourage you to go ahead and, get onboarded, get through KYC, get KYB, get with an advisor, and move cash over, by the end of the week, if that's something that interests you. And again, not trying to incite FOMO or anything else. If you missed the first one, that strategy is going to continue to be there if people want to dollar cost average into the market. But it's a really good strategy. All right. We did Roscoe. He just asked that question. Here we go. Crypto NAT XRP. Good to see you. They say Bjornberg Mastermind, Carbon 1%, 1.1% on the rich list. LLC coming soon. Hard to imagine $1,000 XRP despite my strong belief in XRP. What would be your first step when price appreciation happens? I guess it would depend on what I've done to be proactive, right? So it sounds like you're just at the beginning of getting things structured there. Call your wife or your spouse, call your CPA, call your attorney, and then don't tell anybody else. You probably already have told people that you cared about that you do have a significant position. You may not have told them exactly what that means, but they are going to know, when this happens. So for you in particular, if you're in that position, a trust, probably sooner than later, makes a lot of sense. An asset protection trust in Wyoming. The reason for that is between you and your spouse here in the U.S. as of 2026, you get $30 million that you can gift out of your taxable estate over your lifetime. If Trump stays in office the next 2 years, which again, that's his term, we should see that go up a little bit over the next 2 years. Biden wanted to lower that to 7 million had he won the last election. So, you don't know what the next administration is going to be, whether they're going to be friendly or against this. They could remove the, estate tax, or they could make it where you can only gift like Europe, like $400,000 out of your taxable estate. Or we could go to Canada, where Canadians can gift to their heart's content. Now, there's still some constraints around that they put in place, but if you think your assets are going to be worth more than that, and based on what you just told me there, I think they will be at some point in the not too distant future, it might be a good idea to go ahead and structure that now. Most of our clients don't gift all of their XRP out of their taxable estate, just whatever portion they're going to be using for legacy planning and long-term generational wealth for their family. They're going to keep a large portion in their taxable estate so that they have access to it, because you do have to give up control in order to move it into an asset protection trust. And when I say you give up control, you have a trust protector. You have guidelines that you put together in the trust for how they're supposed to act. You have a distribution trustee that's only supposed to pay you things out of the trust under certain circumstances, which again, you delineate in the trust. So you set out the parameters, but then you don't move the XRP without it meeting those parameters. And that's what gets you the creditor protection over the 2-year period that it's seasoned in. You immediately get probate protection. So those assets are not going to be listed on public, documentation. God forbid you pass away. And
where's Rick Johnson?
I haven't seen Rick tonight.
Oh, worried about him.
I'm sure he's okay. Rick's resilient.
I think so.
So anyway, yeah, there's a lot of reasons that you would want to do that. And then again, the last piece of that, so the third piece is the tax piece. Some people set the trust up and don't gift things out of their taxable estate. That's okay. You just be aware that, if you're going to move assets out later, you're going to be limited to that 30 million. And, anything above that's taxed at 40% here in the US. So I would encourage you to talk to Dan Plaskett on our team. He's the chief architect on the estate planning side, and he can help you work through, what that might look like. It is expensive. It's $20,000 to set up one of those trusts, but for the amount that you have there, we have a lot of people that look at it when they have 300 to 500,000 XRP is when people really start, harping on that and thinking it's worth the money. So again, I don't know if I answered your question specifically. I would find professionals. I would lay low. I would structure my financial committee so that when people do show up, inevitably, as they will, you have a system and procedure for reviewing however they're looking to, use the capital that they would like you to give them. It's me, Denise. Hey, ma'am. Good to see you. She says, Jake and the sweet tea lady, my husband, son, and I are excited to meet you both and all the others in the Beyond Broke Mastermind meetup tomorrow night. Very cool. Glad to see you too. Yeah, we do these, I think that we host more real in-life events than any other community in crypto aside maybe from Crypto Mondays. Shout out to Lou on that one. But this is our third or fourth event this year here in Atlanta. So again, excited to see you, excited to see other people from the mastermind. If you want to be part of a community with like-minded individuals that want to better themselves and those around them, we would love to have you in the group. All you got to do is go to beyondbroke.com, use the code BeyondBroke, all capitalized, number 1, and then MO like Mary Oscar each of the first month for $2. We've had a lot of people that have recently come into the group, which I appreciate them doing that. And, they are pleasantly surprised is the feedback that I get. They're kind of like paying $25, I'm kind of FOMOing into this thing because I know that the prices are going to go up post PA, but they get in there and they're like, wow, this is actually really helpful and really beneficial. And I'm learning a lot and I feel the camaraderie and it's a good place to be. So I'm really proud of it. Again, take it with a grain of salt. I'm super biased. But
if not, just cancel it.
Yeah. Like my wife said, if you don't feel that way, if it doesn't resonate with you, if Discord's a problem and a friction, before we get the website up, then, no skin off your back, a couple bucks, try it out. Doesn't work out, you can cancel anytime. But like I said at the beginning, we got 17,000 people that stay in that community. There may be something there, if that doesn't tell you anything. Robert, Mr. Martinez, he says, I've seen a few exchanges closing going out of business. What do you think about that? Or what does it mean? So I actually posted about this on Twitter. I think it was Saturday, or maybe it was Sunday. when Bitmart said they were going to go out of business. So we've had BitMEX and Bitmart both start to close their doors. We see this at the bottom of bear markets. It's a sign at the bottom of the bear market. We've seen almost all the large exchanges reduce their staff and say that it's AI. I think that the revenues are down and they don't have the need for as many people. And so they're using that as an excuse. And I get it. It's part of the business cycle. If you're working in this industry, just part of the deal, right? So all that being said, I hope it's not something that's a broader problem than what it currently appears. When the second one sunset, I reached out to our team and just made sure that we didn't have any exposure to either one of those exchanges. We never have. We reached out to our partners and made sure that that was the case, and they don't trade there. It's not anything that we're having an issue with. But my bigger concern was, is this systemic? Is there something else going on beyond the fact that they're just not making money and they got to shut the doors? And we reached out to a couple different people that have a really good pulse on the market, and they said, no, we're not seeing anything out there that indicates that this is a systemic problem. So that kind of gave me the warm and fuzzy. But Bitmart had a pretty strong tie to Tether, and we've seen Tether continue to lose traction in different jurisdictions because they don't meet the compliance requirements like MiCA. Australia is also, removing Tether, and the US and other people. So all that being the case, if there is a systemic event with Tether, my biggest concern is Bitfinex. And again, not trying to get anybody to pull their assets off exchanges or incite, people being scared or anything like that, by the way. I don't think that there's any problems with Bitfinex. I'm not throwing shade on Bitfinex. I'm just saying that they have a strong affiliation with Tether. And if Tether did have issues, it would affect them. So, all that to say, it doesn't look like it's a problem, but my spidey senses are tingling. So we'll see if it is or not. ASEY78 says, cheers to vibe coding. Awesome. I built an application for a nonprofit that I volunteer for. You were right. It's freaking amazing. That is fantastic. See, that's some of the cool stuff that people can do now. Like, you have this idea, whatever it is, that you have industry expertise around. Like, you've done this manually for a long time. It's clunky. It's a pain in the butt. It's repetitive. Like, you're like, geez, I wish, there was an easier way to do this. There is. You can build an AI agent. You can build an application. You can build an app that other people can use in order to be able to do that. I'm going to have a guy on my podcast here in the near future that built payment system using the XRPL for contractors. And I've thought about this for a long time. I don't have the industry expertise to execute on it, but I knew somebody would. So you have, general contractor that has subs underneath them for whatever job or project they're doing. And the payment flows for that suck, and you're like, okay, you complete this much of the job. We're going to pay you this much. They hold the money. If you're a blue collar guy and you've experienced this, you understand what I'm talking about. He's built an app on the XRPL with smart contracts and all of this in order to be able to execute payments and distributions to people real time as jobs are being completed in whatever phase they're in. Blew me away. It's awesome. I'm excited to have him on the podcast. We'll let you guys know more about it. But stuff like that, right? Like, you can vibe code anything that you can imagine. Now, you don't need a development team. You don't need, a year's worth of development. You don't need $1 million. You don't need to go raise a seed round. Used to, you would build a fancy UI and a pitch deck. And then you would go to, investors and pitch your idea and say, this is our MVP or our model. It didn't even have a UX or back end on it to actually be able to facilitate anything that it was doing. It was just some screens that showed what it was going to look like. It was a mock-up, basically. Now you can build the whole app. You can have a whole functioning app that you can go show investors in order to raise capital. And then you really don't even need that much capital anymore, because all you need is a development team to QC it. And they can use AI and be 5 or 10 times faster than what it was just 2 years ago. So SaaS is gone. It's done. It's over. Going to be a completely different model in the very near future. And I'm I'm excited to see, the disintermediation that's going to happen because of all this. GA, XRP guy, he says, Jake, welcome to Georgia. Can't wait to see you tomorrow and the rest of the Beyond Broke Mastermind fam. God bless, brother. Dude, super excited to have you come into the event. We've had so many good people reach out to us. We've never done an event here. We've done some events on the East Coast, but never one in Georgia. And so I'm excited to see all the people that we have in the group that live here. We actually have sections in the mastermind, depending on where you live, whether that's UK, Australia, Japan, Canada, and then different states in the US. You go into those channels and you can find all the other people that are in your state that are in the mastermind.
East Texas event on Sunday.
Oh, we have an East Texas event on Sunday this week. So, if you're in that area, you're in this, crazy world that we live in, and you have this investment, and you get ostracized by most people if you talk to them about it. Imagine if you're 3 blocks away from somebody else
Bunch of other nuts.
that's on your same wavelength, right? That understands this, you could have a conversation with, but you're not going to run into this person. You might see them, walking around the neighborhood, or you might see them at the deli or the coffee shop or whatever, but likely you're probably never even going to run into them. But if you're in the mastermind and you both find out that you're in the same state, and then you're like, oh, we're in the same city. Oh, we're 3 blocks apart. Now you can go have lunch with a new buddy that gets all of this and doesn't look at you like you're crazy when you want to talk about it. So that's been really cool to see in the mastermind. We've had a lot of people that weren't that far apart, that just didn't have a way to get connected, and now they do through the group. Only Today Matters. I like that name. Very cool. They say, have an LLC in the minimum XRP required. Spoke with an advisor about onboarding with Anchorage and entered the XRP investment. He wasn't sure if I'd be able to enter because space was limited. That's correct. So, like I said, we're still working through qualifications around this new product that we're rolling out. We're not getting as much of a credit line as I would like to start with. That will expand in the near future, all the way up to multiple products by the end of the year. We're pushing Anchorage for that. So again, you did the right thing. Onboarded, have a conversation, make sure that you're suitable, and it sounds like you got in. So excited to have you working with us and in the new product. Kyle, Mr. Smith, he says, hey, Jake, how do you feel about Senator Loomis' speech today? I'm assuming he means think it might help light a fire under the Clarity Act moving. I listened to Senator Loomis speak at SALT last year in August, and she said that the Clarity Act was going to get done in 2026. We're here past the middle of 2027. Hadn't happened. I don't think it's going to happen. And I want it to. I want to be wrong about this. And I've said this every time. I advocated for it. I was on Capitol Hill advocating for both the Genius Act and the Clarity Act last summer when the Genius Act was passed through the House or the Senate and became law. And we had the Clarity Act passed through the House. And then it's just been a stalemate since then. They have prioritized this Russia sanctions bill. They have the SAVE Act. They have the PACE Act. They've got all these other pieces of legislation that really kind of sit in front of the Clarity Act. And there's a bunch of, back and forth on the ethics component of it with Democrats, and, Trump's making a bunch of money on meme coins, crypto. So they're trying to, fit things in there for that. They're going to change it in some capacity. And if that's the case, they don't pass the bill as it sits. They're going to have to go through a filibuster. They're going to have to push it to a full Senate floor vote. If they get it past that, it'll go to the House. The House is already on recess. They come back, I think, September 1st. But then they're out again Labor Day. So they only have a week or two to pass whatever legislation they got to get through. And then you're on the midterms. Unless there is a systemic event that requires Congress participation and they call them back in, because Trump can do that. They call them back in and they say, look, you are voting on this right now. We're going to get this passed because if we don't, the U.S. is going to collapse. That's the only circumstance in which I think there's a possibility that this gets across the line. If we don't see that scenario play out, I think it's 27 before we see the Clarity Act passed. And then that may not even be the case then, because after midterms, if the Democrats do get in a position where they take a portion of the House, now there's even more friction in that system, and it's even less likely that it is going to get across the line. So, but what I would say to that is the SEC came out just a few days ago and said that they are prepared to roll out crypto regulation and guidelines if the Clarity Act doesn't pass. And this is like, we know they're going to do it. They actually, worked with the CFTC to issue joint guidance around which cryptos they saw as commodities and which ones they still saw as securities. I think that they have enough education over there at this point to actually be able to, decide what DeFi is supposed to look like and what guardrails are going to be there. And what I'll say about Congress too, and not to throw shade on anybody, but like, they don't know. They have so many different things on their plate, and the lobbyists are in their ear. The big banks are back there in their ear, and whoever funds them is how they're going to vote. I don't like that our system works that way, but that is how it works. Who's got the deepest pockets and who's willing to donate to their campaign? And so they don't have a ton of education on this. I mean, like I said, I've been on Capitol Hill. I've talked to these congressmen and women. They are good people, a lot of them. They mean well, but they don't have the understanding or expertise to really be able to understand a bill that was written the right way to actually, provide governance for the SEC and oversight, or the CFTC and the oversight. I think that they're going to be the ones that end up deciding what this is going to look like. And Clarity is just going to continue to get kicked out until, we've already put rules in place that are working, and then they just codify that into law later on. And that's been a concern for a long time, because the SEC regulated by enforcement under the Biden administration and under Gary Gensler. But now that we have Paul Adkins, and we've got the right people in place, I'm actually really happy about where the SEC's at and all the progress that's been made. And I think with Hester Pierce and many of the other people that are still there, they have the industry knowledge and expertise, and they've gotten enough feedback to understand how this should actually work. So I think that that's probably the way it goes, is the SEC and the CFTC issue joint guidance around, commodity pools and, broker-dealer activity and how this is going to work in DeFi. And we don't necessarily need the Clarity Act, and XRP already has Clarity anyway. So that's my 2 cents. Take it for what it's worth. It's worth 2 cents. Roughing It, good to see you, ma'am. She says, hey, can you please tell me what more benefits I'm getting by being in Carbon 2 versus Carbon 1? Thank you very much. So Carbon 2 has one more meeting a week. You're also going to get access to private deals that Carbon 1 won't have access to. We're going to be hosting some other events later this year. There's one in Lake Tahoe that you will be able to attend if you're on Carbon 2 or higher. And the weekly call that we have there in Carbon 2 tends to be a bit more sophisticated than the one in Carbon 1. Carbon 1's for a lot of people that are just setting up their LLC, or just starting to get into thinking about how to structure this stuff. Carbon 2, a lot of people already have trust in place. They have LLCs. They've had some forethought on a lot of things, and they're looking toward, like, how do I use insurance? What other investment opportunities are there out there? Real estate. How do I do due diligence on, other types of investments for post-price appreciation? That's the main benefit there. And again, like I said, you have access to some deals that, we don't bring to the rest of the community. And we're going to start structuring some events. We had a Carbon 2 event last year, also in Reno. And I think this one will be in September, toward the end of September, that you guys will be able to go to that if you are in those higher tiers. All right. It's a good question. Appreciate you asking it. We're a little over an hour and a half in here. I'm going to try to get to the rest of these, and then we're going to wrap it up. Kamikaze, they say, hey, Jake, the crypto pioneer, Chad legend. I don't know that I have the jawline to be a Chad, but I really appreciate the kind words and the compliment. He says, thoughts on using Wyoming LLC to acquire businesses for sale. Are those also alternative investments? They sure are. The company that we set up is a holding company, and you could absolutely use it for that. It will hold digital assets and other, alternative investments, like you just mentioned. Purchasing businesses is one of those verticals. We need to edit the operating agreement a little bit in order to be able to facilitate that. That's not a big lift. You can work with ChatGPT or Claude and throw that provision in there. You can work with our team and we'll add it in. If that's your intention with the business, you do want, separation between that business entity and your holding company. If you are going to lease assets to that other business for it to operate that you're going to have possession of, you might want to hold those in your holding company and then lease them to the service company that you're going to be acquiring equity in. Depends on what type of businesses you plan to acquire. In Carbon 2, this is another good example. We've had Ben Kelly come in there. He runs Acquisition Ace, which he teaches people how to acquire businesses creatively or using SBA loans. He's acquired 7 businesses over the last 3 years that nets him about $1.3 million. He works about 30 hours a week and runs a full community and helps other people do the same thing. So we have the connections. We have other people that do M&A. We have investment bankers and other people that you can structure stuff with. He has a lot of people who will help you with SBA loans in order to be able to acquire those businesses. So yes, we absolutely can help you with that. And I would also say, if you are in Carbon 2 or one of the higher tiers, we have, I don't know, probably 2,000 or 3,000 hours worth of town halls and different things that we've done over the last 3 years that you can listen back to. And there are some that are exclusive for Carbon 2 and Carbon 3 that people in lower tiers don't have access to. So if you're looking for a specific thing, if we've already done it, you can listen back to that town hall and we can get you with that other professional or, the other people in our network to help you do whatever you're trying to do. Or if you have something that's outside of the scope of things that we've already talked about, we have somebody in our network that we can bring in to talk about things and help you, get a leg up and educate yourself on it, and also give you a resource for when you're looking to pull the trigger on whatever that is. We got Jibby. They say, I noticed other content creators doing walk and talks, evidently something to do with the algorithm. Is there any chance we'll see you on a horse or riding horseback? I sold my saddle. Well, my wife sold my saddle. I haven't ridden a horse. When was the last time I did?
It's been about a year when you got on Polly.
Oh yeah. No, that was the play days not that long ago.
Yeah, those were the fall play days. That was September of last year.
Okay. All right. So it's been a year since I've been on a horse, and she tried to buck me off pretty quickly. My wife's horse has a lot of buttons. If you're an equestrian, you understand this. So there are horses that are just green broke, like they're really not that broke. They know when you kick them to go. And then there's other horses that are broke. And, depending on where you put pressure on the horse or on the saddle or with the reins, they do different things. You can get them to side pass. You can get them to do some other things that just a green broke horse won't do. And I am not sophisticated enough to know to where I'm even applying pressure. So I need something that's bigger than her horse, for one. But 2, something that's a little more deadhead that is going to put up with my BS because I don't know what I'm doing. But no, we have done trail rides and stuff in the past. Max has been trying to get me to do what's called yakking, which is like just walk you guys around my daily life when I'm doing something, whether that's working out or playing golf or business meetings or, inside the office or whatever. So I need to be doing that. I have a little handheld thing that I actually have in my handy dandy, backpack right here that's for that. I'm not good about doing that because I try to live in the moment and do what I'm doing. But I do go on walks in the morning. I don't know if you guys follow Stan Efferdine or not. He's a fitness guy. He's got the cooler, with the K. Anyway, Stan's been a businessman for a long time. He used to be the strongest bodybuilder in the world. And anyway, been very successful, but he does that. He will go on 10-minute walks, 2 or 3 times a day, and he just records himself and talks while he's on his walk. So maybe I'll start doing that when I'm on my walks in the morning.
No, some weirdos might try to find out where we live.
Oh, well, I won't do it around the house. Lake A says, hello, Jake. When we see price appreciation, what's the best way if I want to sell a small portion of my bag? Do we call DAG to access the OTC desk? Yeah. Sure enough. That'd be, if you're already a client, we can set limit orders for you. So if you think, there's a certain price point that you want to take an exit at, we can set that up for you now. So it'll just execute. But yeah, you just email your advisor. They will verify that it's you. They'll call you. They'll place the order, let you know when it executes. If it's a large order, so like, let's say you said a small portion of your bag, but I think a lot of people want to take a couple million off the top just to like pay off their house or pay off debts or start a business or do whatever they're going to do with it. Okay. Couple $1 million is not a small trade. There's probably gonna have to be multiple orders in order to be able to fill that trade, depending on the liquidity in XRP and stable coins at the time when you do it. As it sits today, it would be multiple trades in order to be able to get you best price. We are 10 basis points is all we charge on that trade. So if you traded $1 million, I think it's like $100 is all it will cost you on the trade. If you wanted to do that at pretty much any other exchange or brokerage, you're going to be paying somewhere between 2 and 4% on that trade. Now, if you have access to their OTC desk, it's probably down from that some. But even some brokers that are out there are charging 3% on that. We're 10 basis points. So yeah, I would say that we're the most cost-effective way to do that, and probably have a bit higher security than some other people. But if you're a DAG client, we would love to work with you and help you execute that couple $1 million trade and get you access to that liquidity on the other side of PA. iTrade says U.S. debt clock talks about asset-backed treasury dollar with a basket of assets to back it with 0.3% buying power and less taxes. Blockchain moves that value in AI and the robotics for cheaper, faster labor. Yeah, you got it. You need these technologies in order to be able to facilitate this transition from a debt-based system with all the frictions that we have today to real-time payment and settlement and an asset-backed or collateral-backed or commodity-backed or whatever you want to call it. The new financial system that we're going to be transitioning into is going to require both AI and blockchain in order to be, to have the growth to be able to get us out of this situation and restructure the debt. Because here's the deal with the debt. It can't be a debt jubilee. I know a lot of people would love that. And they've done some of that already. Like they've forgiven some student loans and some other stuff. One person's debt is another person's asset. Okay. As an example, you own a house or you have a mortgage on a house. Okay. You put your down payment. The bank has that note. They carry the title until you pay it off. They will roll that up with other mortgages in a mortgage-backed security. They will sell that to somebody else, a pension fund or an annuity, because there's structured payments that they're going to be getting on that, right? And they pay a discounted rate. So let's say they pay 90% of the total value, or they discount the cash flows back to get the value that it is today based on interest over the long term and that real cash value. So they're going to pay a lesser rate, take that debt. That's now an asset on their balance sheet, and you owe. And when you pay, I'm sure you guys have had, somebody else take over your mortgage. You're like, what the heck happened? That's what happened, is they sold that mortgage to somebody else because it's an asset on their balance sheet. So it's debt to you, asset to them. You can't just get rid of that. It would collapse pension funds. It would collapse annuities. It would collapse all these other things. So you can't get rid of the debt. The only thing that you can do is restructure it. And that's what BlackRock's been doing for the past 20 years almost, is pairing bad debt with a lot of good debt in order to be able to cycle it through the economy. And they've had to continue with QE and interest rates being low and all these other things in order to be able to kick the can and prolong that, because if it's all the bad debt at one time, it's catastrophic. If you can spread it out over a duration, you can get away with it. And so that's what they've done since '08. But now they're at the end of what they can kick the can on that, and they know that. And I think BlackRock has a much more significant role with this transition than most people think. All right, we're going to take two more here, and then we're going to wrap it up tonight. We got Cobra Chicken 5. They say, hey, Jake, Beyond Broke Mastermind, Carbon One. Awesome, dude. Glad to have you in here. Appreciate you being part of the community. Hope to see you at the event tomorrow night. They say, I have friends that I got to buy XRP. Some are upset with me because of the price. I can get them out of their rich, fast thoughts. I can't get them out of their rich, get rich quick scheme thoughts. Any idea of what to say? I talked about this on the podcast earlier today. When I make an investment, at least I try to operate in this capacity, it's a 4-year time horizon for me, at a minimum. That's what an investment is. If you are buying and selling sooner than that, then it's really more of a trade, or you're long-term swing trading something. And there's a lot of people profitable doing that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with doing that. But this is not a get-rich-quick scheme. There's anything that is a get-rich-quick scheme tends to be not so legitimate. MLMs have a stigma for being not so legitimate. A lot of people get rich doing that. There have been people that have got rich in stocks and other investments in crypto very quickly that have also gone broke. I've told you guys, about the guy that became a billionaire in ETH that lost it all in Terra Luna. If you make it fast, you're probably going to lose it fast. If you had to suffer and grind and continue to have conviction when other people didn't over an extended period of time, and you had the persistence and patience in order to be able to get to something, it's got a lot more gravity when you get there. And it's a lot more likely that you're going to be able to maintain it and preserve it over the long term. So I know people are facing frictions and frustration with where the market's at. If anybody is, it's me. Okay. There's not anybody that wants this to move more than I do. I would guarantee I have a little bit more on the line than your buddy to put $500 in it. And I'm not saying that to belittle him or disparage anybody. I'm just saying, if they really believed in it, if they believed in you when you said it, then they should have the conviction to be able to hold and just understand that this is going to take a little bit and that there needs to be real world catalysts that take place. And on the other side of that, things are going to play out. But they're going to have to be, they're going to have to persevere through a little bit of pain in order to be able to get the outcome. And there's, like I said, anything that lasts or anything big that's ever been built requires that. There's not, it's going to last. Like I said, there are plenty of instances, lottery winners and other people that have made money in a very short period of time. Most of them squander it, and they end up being worse off than they were before because they didn't learn the skills, traits, and beliefs in order to be able to maintain it on the other side of that. So the other thing is, if you liked it at $2 or $3, you should love it at $1. Brad Garlinghouse repeats this, and Warren Buffett said it first. Be greedy when others are fearful, and be fearful when others are greedy. Right now, everybody's fearful. So probably wouldn't be bad to be greedy right about now. Again, non-financial advice. Listen to a lot of other people. Take what I say with a grain of salt. All right, we'll take one more and then we're going to wrap it. Yeah, Mr. Luther, good to see you. He says, hey, Jake, thanks for everything that you do. Can you explain? We already did that one. I think I made it through all of them. I'm going to go all the way to the bottom and try to grab one more. I'm sure somebody put in a super chat after I told you guys not to. Rocky Mountain Jack, good to see you, man. Appreciate the super chat. Hope you and Leslie are doing well. You guys did pretty good. I don't see any super chats way down here. Oh, okay. My wife says there's some. Oh, she's just concerned that there might. Here we go. All right, we're going to end on this one. We got Matt. He says, Jake, I'm finalizing my SAFE, SAF. It's tokenized pest control fund. What do I need in the PPM and other docs before I come to you to make it happen? It's a good question. Pest control fund. So you're rolling up pest control companies. It's actually really interesting. I don't know what the margins are on pest control companies, but I would love to see that in the deck. I would love to see what efficiencies you're going to be able to create with the fund in order to be able to reduce cost across the businesses and increase margins. Are you going to be doing some type of licensing program or franchise? Or is this, you buy the whole thing and restructure it and rebrand it in whatever jurisdiction, the business is located in? I'd want to really understand the business plan and why it fits this vertical. And also your expertise in it. Have you worked in pest control for a long time? Have you run a pest control business? Have you already rolled up other companies in the past in another vertical or in pest control? What's the profitability look like? What's the pre-money versus the post-money on the round for the SAFE? For those that don't know, a SAFE is a simple agreement for future equity. What's the trigger event on the SAFE? Are you negotiable on the terms of the SAFE? When's the next round? Who do you plan to approach in the next round? Who's the strategic exit that you're going to be selling to? Do you already have connections to other private equity funds that would want to buy this from you once you've already rolled up a certain amount? Have you negotiated those terms for what that's going to look like for a liquidity event? There's lots of stuff that I would want to understand before investing. And that's, again, a lot of the stuff that we teach people in Carbon 2, right? Like when you're doing due diligence on deals, what questions are you asking? A lot of the time you're investing in the person, right? So what's their background, expertise, connections? One of the deals that I can't talk about that because it's ongoing. I'd like to share that one with you. It's a really cool one. But yeah, performance, like anybody can build a deck. But if you put together a pro forma and like listed out all those numbers that I just ran through, total addressable market for pest control in the US, what portion you think you can capture based on, where you're buying the businesses, at what, multiple over EBITDA you're going to be able to acquire them for, how many you've done that for in the past, how you were able to negotiate and structure those deals. Was it an equity swap? Was it an SBA loan? Was it owner finance? You're going to be raising this capital, but you probably want some other skin in the game for the operators that have been in these businesses for 20 or 30 years that have the relationships so that you don't lose those immediately. Are they going to be getting a second bite of the apple where they sell off a portion of their equity now, and then when you exit, they're going to be able to participate with you? I can't look at my phone, but there's a book on private equity that I read. I don't know, it's probably been 4 or 5 months ago now. There's a gentleman that's a billionaire. He's bought and sold over 300 companies in his lifetime. He's had $3 billion exits, all to private equity companies, and he's raised a bunch of money in order to be able to do that. His name escapes me. I want to say it's Brent is his first name. Brent Williams. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. But yeah, I would love to see a pro forma with all those numbers in it and understand, why you're going to be the guy that gets it done, basically. And depending on what that looks like, we could bring it to the group, or I'm happy to make introductions to other private equity people that I know. Drew Donahoe in Dallas, if you guys don't know who he is, he built the accelerator program at SMU. He runs a large private equity fund between him and 3 other partners. They're doing this right now in a separate vertical. I won't say which vertical it is, but when he told me the margins on the companies that they're acquiring, I was blown away. And he's, like I said, he's done this before. He's got the background in it. He's in his late 30s. He's had multiple liquidity events. That's how he made the money in order to be able to pool the capital with the other 3 guys. They don't take outside capital. They just, they're managing $400 million of their own money, and they go out and make these acquisitions and scale things up and have exits to their buddies in private equity. So anyway, I don't know if that gave you the answer you were looking for. Hopefully it gave you some context about, what I look for in a deal. But great question, and definitely something separate of what we normally talk about on the lives. And yeah, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it. Again, appreciate you guys taking time out of your Wednesday to come hang out with me and ask fantastic questions. Hope you got some value from this. As always, please like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell, all the fun stuff. If you want to work with us or at least see what we're about on the wealth management, insurance, or private client side to be able to help you structure your estate, mitigate taxes, do all the fun stuff for your crypto, you can go over to dag.com. And then if you do want to join the community of over 17,000 people that are like-minded, want to do better for themselves and their family, and have a significant interest in digital assets, that want financial education, business resources, and access to private deals, all you got to do is go to beyondbroke.com, use the code beyondbroke, all capitalized, number 1, and then MO, like Mary Oscar, each of the first month for $2 in social or Carbon One. And like I've said before, on the other side of PA, on the other side of a $10 XRP, we're locking it down. There will be no new members. It will be invite only, and it will be much, much more expensive than it is right now. So I hope you guys have a wonderful Wednesday, a wonderful week, and we'll see you on the next one.